It appears as a single line in a maintenance log. Not an alarm. Not a warning light. Not a cascade failure across half a dozen integrated systems. Just a line of text in a low-priority diagnostic buffer that almost no one reads at 2:47 a.m. in the Strait of Hormuz. The electronic warfare technician on the overnight watch has been staring at his console for 4 hours. The strait is narrow here, 21 nautical miles at its tightest point, and the ambient radar traffic from commercial vessels, Iranian patrol boats, and the ongoing air operations above the Persian Gulf creates a texture of noise so dense that isolating meaningful data requires the kind of focused attention that only comes from years of training and excessive amounts of shipboard coffee. He is not supposed to be reading the maintenance buffer. He is supposed to be monitoring threat contacts on the primary display. But the buffer refreshes automatically in a corner window, and something in the pattern of the refresh catches his eye. A 0.4-second lag in the SPY-1D radar's threat evaluation subroutine. Present for 2 complete cycles, then gone. He logs it, notes the timestamp, notes the parameters, marks it low priority. Then he looks at it again. He has worked with this radar system for 6 years across 2 deployments. He has seen hardware lag. He has seen software conflicts. He has seen power fluctuations cause momentary processing delays. This lag has a different texture. It is too precise. Hardware failures are irregular, asymmetric, unpredictable. This lag is the same duration both times, to within 4 milliseconds. That kind of consistency does not come from a failing component. It comes from code. At 3:10 a.m., he flags the log entry to the ship's ONI liaison with a single-word annotation: irregular. The ONI liaison reads the flag at 3:14 a.m. He is awake because he is always awake at sea. He pulls the full diagnostic record for the radar system going back 72 hours. The lag has occurred 9 times. Always the same duration. Always in the threat evaluation subroutine. Always when the radar's processing load is at or near peak capacity. Exactly the condition that would exist during an active incoming threat engagement. The lag is not a bug. It is a feature. Someone has built it to activate precisely when the system would need to function perfectly. By 3:31 a.m., the liaison has made one encrypted communication through a channel so restricted that even the ship's commanding officer is not on the recipient list. By 4:50 a.m., a CH-60 helicopter from the carrier operating 40 miles south is inbound, carrying 3 civilians who are logged on the flight manifest as a technical support team for a routine systems audit. They carry equipment cases that weigh considerably more than their stated purpose would require. The ONI cyber forensics team goes to work immediately in a partitioned section of the ship's technical compartment that is sealed, camera disabled, and off the normal crew access list. They are not friendly people. They do not introduce themselves. They do not answer questions about what they are looking at. They work in silence, pulling layer after layer of the radar's firmware architecture apart with tools that do not appear in any unclassified acquisition catalog. It takes them 11 hours and 40 minutes to find it. The implant is buried in layer 22 of the radar's threat prioritization processing stack. It is not a virus in any conventional sense. It does not replicate. It does not broadcast. It does not consume additional processing resources that would show up in a performance audit. It simply exists. A dormant instruction set, invisible under normal operating conditions, designed to activate when the system detects a specific combination of radar load, heading, and time window. When those conditions align, the implant introduces a 0.4-second hold into the threat evaluation cycle. 0.4 of a second. Less time than it takes a human being to blink. Enough time for a supersonic, sea-skimming anti-ship missile to travel an additional 400 meters closer to the ship before the engagement sequence is authorized. It was planted 8 months ago, during a scheduled maintenance overhaul at a naval shipyard on the East Coast. The access logs from that overhaul show 34 individuals with hands-on contact with the ship's radar processing hardware. 33 of them are cleared personnel with spotless records. The 34th is a civilian contractor who specializes in firmware integration for naval combat systems. He holds a top-secret clearance. He has worked on 6 U.S. Navy vessels over the past 9 years. His financial records, when examined by the joint task force that has been quietly assembled at the FBI field office in Hampton Roads, Virginia, reveal something that his clearance investigators missed. A series of 23 payments, each under $9,000, routed through 4 different shell companies across 3 jurisdictions, ultimately traceable to an Omani-registered import firm with a documented commercial relationship with an IRGC-affiliated procurement network. He has been providing his handlers with 2 categories of intelligence for 11 months. The first, technical vulnerability data on the radar systems he services, processing architecture, lag tolerances, engagement authorization windows. The second, patrol route schedules and fleet positioning data for vessels in the strike group, passed through dead drop protocols during routine contractor visits to Norfolk. He is in Virginia. He has been under physical surveillance since 5:20 a.m. when the ONI team confirmed the implant's origin and transmitted the contractor identification package to the Joint Task Force. NCIS and FBI personnel have vehicles positioned at 4 locations within a half-mile radius of his apartment. They are watching. They are waiting. They have been told not to move until they receive a specific authorization signal. They do not yet know why. They will understand within hours. At 6:47 p.m., SIGINT collection assets operating in the Gulf of Oman detect a surge in encrypted IRGC naval coordination traffic. Traffic analysis, the science of understanding communication patterns without necessarily decrypting content, reveals a structure consistent with pre-strike coordination. Multiple geographically separated units synchronizing to a shared timeline. The volume and urgency of the traffic increases through the evening. By 9:30 p.m., analysts at 2 separate intelligence nodes have independently assessed a coordinated kinetic strike package against a surface asset in the Strait of Hormuz is being organized for early morning. The projected launch window, calculated from movement patterns of known IRGC coastal defense assets near Bandar Abbas, is approximately 5:15 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. The destroyer is their target. The IRGC has the ship's patrol coordinates. They have the predicted radar vulnerability window. They have 8 Noor anti-ship missiles positioned at 2 shore-based battery sites on the northern coastline. They have 11 fast attack craft armed with C-802 derivative missiles holding position 22 nautical miles out in a dispersed formation that is difficult to distinguish from routine patrol activity. They have 4 targeting acquisition drones pre-positioned for launch at 5 a.m. They have been building this operation for 6 weeks. The firmware implant was the keystone. Everything else was constructed around the 90-second window that implant was designed to create in the destroyer's defensive capability. What the IRGC does not know at 9:30 p.m. on the night of the strike is that the keystone has been removed. The decision is made at 11:47 p.m. in a secure conference that includes the strike group commander, the ONI team lead, and 3 other individuals whose titles do not appear in any unclassified document. It is the most consequential decision of the operation, and it is simple. Nothing changes. The contractor is not arrested. The IRGC is not alerted. The ship does not alter its patrol pattern. External communications from the destroyer continue to simulate the degraded system status that the contractor's handlers have been monitoring through their technical access. Every message, every routine diagnostic transmission, every scheduled check-in is scripted to confirm what the enemy believes. The implant is active, the window is intact, the ship is blind. Meanwhile, inside the sealed technical compartment, the ONI cyber team begins the most delicate operation of the night. A manual firmware rollback on an air-gapped partition of the radar's processing architecture. Working backward through 22 layers of firmware to excise the implant without triggering the self-destruct protocol embedded in its base code. If the self-destruct activates, it will corrupt 3 critical processing modules and take the radar offline for a minimum of 4 hours. They have the timeline. They have the tools. What they do not have is margin for error. The CIC is quieter than it should be. Sailors at their stations breathe through the tension of knowing something is happening without being told what. The displays are nominal. The contacts are nominal. The patrol track is nominal. The only indication that anything is different is the subtle dimming of the CIC lighting as auxiliary power is rerouted to the isolated technical partition, and the fact that the senior electronic warfare officer has not moved from his console in 3 hours. By 4:52 a.m., the rollback is 94% complete. The implant has been isolated in a contained code segment and flagged for deletion. The shadow engagement algorithm, a compensatory subroutine written by the ONI team during the investigation to fill any residual processing gaps, is loaded and ready. Then the cascade error hits. The shadow algorithm's integration pathway conflicts with the ship's primary fire control routing architecture at the data bridge level. The conflict generates an automatic lockout protocol. If it completes, it will freeze the VLS launch authorization system. The weapons control officer has 4 minutes and 20 seconds to isolate and bypass the conflict before the lockout executes. He has never performed this procedure under operational conditions. No one has. He works through it in methodical, controlled silence, disconnecting the primary fire control data bridge and routing launch authorization through the secondary backup pathway. A configuration that exists in technical documentation as a contingency, but which has never been validated in a live combat scenario. At 5:06 a.m., the lockout protocol receives a null instruction and terminates. The VLS system is live. The radar is clean. The shadow algorithm is operational. The ship is ready. The IRGC launches at 5:11 a.m., 7 minutes early. Whether a ground commander grew impatient, or a secondary intelligence source suggested the window was closing, or simply the accumulated pressure of a 6-week operation finally overwhelmed the carefully constructed timing. The reason does not matter. 8 Noor anti-ship missiles ignite from 2 shore battery sites on the northern coastline of the strait. On the infrared satellite feed, their launch signatures appear as sudden white-hot streaks against the darkness of the Iranian coast. 8 lines of fire arcing out over the water and dropping low, skimming the surface at wave-height altitude, spreading into a fan formation designed to stress a defending ship's engagement geometry. On the destroyer's primary display, the threat tracks appear simultaneously across the full radar picture. Clean, precise, no lag, no blind window. The threat evaluation subroutine processes every contact in 0.04 seconds, exactly as designed, exactly as built, exactly as the IRGC's planners had assumed it would not. The first SM-2 missile clears the VLS at 5:12 a.m. with a detonation of compressed gas and a trail of fire that lights up the forward deck for 2 seconds. Then a second, then a third. The concussive pressure of each launch rolls through the deck plating and into the boots and bones of every sailor standing at a console. The smell of the CIC shifts from the flat electronics-cooled air of a routine watch to something sharper and more immediate. Ozone from overloaded processing nodes cycling at maximum capacity, and a faint, acrid trace bleeding back through the ventilation system from the missile cells cycling below. Men brace against their consoles, leaning into the work, faces lit from below by the green-white glow of tactical displays that are updating faster than the eye can fully track. 4 Noor missiles are intercepted at extended range. Standard engagements. Then the second IRGC battery, positioned 12 kilometers further east along the coastline, launches its 4 missiles on a flanking vector, a lateral approach angle calculated to stress the radar's coverage geometry and force simultaneous engagements across a wider bearing spread. The shadow algorithm compensates. The additional processing load pushes one of the radar's secondary emitter nodes to its thermal limit. An amber warning light appears on the electronic warfare technician's console. He silences it and keeps his hands on his board. The node holds. 2 more SM-2 intercepts on the flanking missiles. Then the 7th Noor, the trailing missile from the eastern battery, running lower and faster than the others, shielded in the radar return clutter of the preceding intercept detonations. Punches inside the outer engagement envelope at a range that makes the fire control watch officer's hands freeze for exactly half a second before training overrides reflex. The CIWS activates at 1,200 meters. Its rotary barrel assembly spins to operational speed in under a second, and the cannon fires at a rate that collapses individual rounds into a continuous mechanical roar. The sound of a machine doing something no human hand could manage alone. The Noor is taken at 900 meters. Its warhead does not function, but the sheer kinetic mass of the incoming missile body and fragments continues forward, and a portion of the debris impacts the forward superstructure. A radar mast bracket is sheared clean. A ventilation intake on the forward deck is penetrated. A sailor on the weather deck, who had no reason to be there, and every reason to be there because someone had to confirm a visual on the debris view, sustains fragmentation injuries to the left arm and lower torso. He is below decks and in the medical bay within 4 minutes. The 8th Noor missile never reaches the water. At 5:13 a.m., a Tomahawk cruise missile launched from a second destroyer positioned 60 miles to the south, waiting since 4:30 a.m. for exactly this targeting solution, impacts the coastal battery site. The launch infrastructure is rendered inoperable in a single kinetic engagement. The fast attack craft flotilla, now 14 nautical miles out and closing at attack speed, reads the failure of the missile barrage on their own targeting systems. Their tactical role was to exploit the chaos created by the initial salvo, to swarm into the smoke and confusion of a ship with a compromised defensive system and overwhelm point defense at close range. That scenario no longer exists. What they are closing on is a fully operational, fully alert Aegis-equipped warship with its fire control system locked on every one of their heat signatures. The flotilla commander does not reverse course. He accelerates. A full-speed attack run, the only remaining option available to a commander who has just watched his primary strike package fail, and who is transmitting under a communication protocol that makes retreating without engagement an act of career-ending failure. It is not courage. It is the logic of a system that offers no path between success and catastrophe. The ship's fire control shifts to surface engagement mode. SM-2 re-engages at medium surface range against the leading craft. The CIWS bearing drive slews left, cycling between the last airborne contacts and the incoming surface targets in a targeting rhythm that has no human analog. Faster and more precise than any operator could achieve manually, reading the engagement geometry in fractions of a second. A Harpoon anti-ship missile is authorized and launches from the port side, its seeker head acquiring the lead element of the fast attack formation at 11 nautical miles. The flotilla splits. 2 leading craft execute sharp evasive turns. They are not fast enough. Both are rendered inoperable within the same engagement window. 4 craft break off and run north. 4 more hold course for another 30 seconds before the reacquiring Harpoon seeker forces a second scatter. 2 of the remaining craft reach Iranian territorial waters. The other 2 are intercepted by a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft that has been orbiting the outer engagement area since 4:30 a.m., running dark, waiting. It does not miss. At 5:19 a.m., the precise minute the IRGC's firmware implant had been designed to create a 90-second radar blind window, the destroyer's SPY-1D radar is fully operational. Its threat display is clear. The engagement is over. At 5:24 a.m., in a parking structure adjacent to a defense contractor facility in Hampton Roads, Virginia, 2 NCIS special agents and 3 FBI personnel approach a sedan. The contractor is taken into custody. He does not resist. He is calm. He believes in these first moments that this is a routine follow-up to a security clearance review. He will maintain that belief for approximately 4 hours until the scope of the evidence package is laid in front of him in an interview room, and the reality of 11 months of espionage activity, documented in forensic detail across 23 financial transactions, 6 firmware access logs, and 14 dead drop exchanges, becomes undeniable. A secondary asset, identified through traffic analysis of the IRGC communication surge, is taken into custody by partner intelligence services in Muscat, Oman, at 7:41 a.m. local time. The Omani shell company is frozen. On the destroyer, the forward deck crew works through first light to assess and document the fragment damage. The radar mast bracket is photographed and bagged as evidence of the engagement. The ventilation penetration is patched by a damage control party before 8 a.m. The VLS system is restored to its primary fire control routing by 6:11 a.m. The injured sailor is stabilized, treated, and resting below decks. His prognosis is full recovery. The numbers that will eventually appear in the classified after-action record are the kind of numbers that do not make headlines, but define the operational reality of modern naval defense. 11 months of active espionage by the contractor. 8 months the firmware implant sat dormant in the radar's processing architecture, waiting for the exact conditions of a real-world engagement. 19 hours between the electronic warfare technician's log entry at 2:47 a.m. and the moment the IRGC launched its strike. 8 Noor anti-ship missiles launched. 7 neutralized or destroyed at source. 11 IRGC fast attack craft engaged. 6 rendered inoperable or removed from the battlespace. 2 individuals taken into custody. 1 injured sailor returned to limited duty within 48 hours. 1 damaged radar mast bracket, preserved as physical evidence. 0 ships lost. And 1 single number that anchors the entire operation, 0.4. The duration in seconds of a blind window that was supposed to let the missile through. The same number that caught the attention of 1 technician on a night watch that was supposed to be quiet. The most lethal weapon deployed in this operation was not the SM-2 missile, the CIWS, or the Harpoon. It was the decision to remain silent after the discovery, to hold the knowledge of a betrayal internally, suppress the instinct to act, and allow the adversary to proceed toward a trap that had been built from the components of their own plan. That silence, maintained across every level of the chain of command from 3:31 a.m. through 5:24 a.m., required a discipline that does not come from equipment or doctrine. It comes from the understanding that intelligence, at its highest application, is not about knowing what the enemy is doing. It is about knowing what the enemy is about to do, and choosing with precision the exact moment to let them discover you already knew. In the Strait of Hormuz, the water moves without memory. But the record of what passed through it, every log entry, every intercept, every maintenance flag, every encrypted coordination burst, every chain of forensic evidence, endures. And so does the standard set by a single technician who read a maintenance buffer at 2:47 a.m. and wrote 1 word: irregular. The intelligence holds the line long before the missiles ever fire.